Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Good to see you all. Now, as the gentleman on the screen said at the beginning of the service, my name is Seth. I'm the middle school pastor here at Cassis, and I am simply jumping in for a week, getting a chance to get in here and continue with the discussion that we've had on these churches in the book of Revelation. And I'm excited about today's because really, perhaps more so than any of the other letters that I've read, that this letter really has something for everyone. And so I'm really thrilled to be a part of that. But first, we should probably address the obvious here. Is you may be wondering, why is he holding a bat? And my response to you is, don't worry about it. It just happens. No. This is not just any bat. You should know that. You insult it when you call it a bat. This is the Red Baron. This is my home protection system. I keep the Red Baron, much like any good warrior. I've named my weapon, and I keep my weapon directly next to my bed so that if my castle is breached, I am quickly able to defend it, as is my calling and duty. So he's with me all the time, at least in my house. Usually not out here. But this leads to a larger idea, and I'd love your input, your response to this. Have you all experienced, much like I have, the feeling of where maybe perhaps you've woken up, but you're not fully awake? You wake up in the middle of the night, and you're still kind of stuck in like the dream world, the sleep world, where I was just dreaming and surrounded by puppy dogs and watermelons. Where did they all go? They were just right here, and you're not fully awake, and you're struggling to just figure out what's going on. Has anybody else ever experienced that? So, thank you. I apparently experienced that a lot, and I'm recalling back to one particular time where I was in this half awake, half asleep stage, and I woke up and I don't know what I was dreaming about, but I looked down at the end of my bed, and I absolutely swear, I see poking its head with these two little beady eyes up over the bed, and this rat, and it just winks at me, and it dives underneath the comforter, and I was like, it is go time. And I, like a samurai, I jumped out of the bed, I grabbed the Red Baron, and I was ready to go. And my wife was in bed still, because she apparently didn't see it. And so my wonderful, amazing poor wife wakes up to her husband, "Psst, Harry, Arian, psst, wake up. Get out of bed. Get the dogs. Go into the bathroom and lock the door. I'm about to kill it." So, this is what she sees. And my wife is again, an amazing lady who clearly has apparently dealt with me in this state before, because she simply says, "Well, I'm sitting here ready to go to town. Wake up. It's not real. Wake up. Let's go back to bed." What? Wait, no. Oh, right you are. Good night. And I holster the Red Baron once more, and he's never had to be used. So, but that brings us to this larger image and idea of some of us don't just exist that way when we wake up in the middle of the night. Some of us are walking through life even now, and we are not awake. We are missing what life is truly supposed to be. We are missing who we're truly supposed to be. We are asleep, and things are creeping into our lives that could be incredibly destructive. It is not good to try and make it through life asleep. We must be awake. And so this letter that we are looking at today pulls us into this idea of being awake, and it involves a couple different ideas and a couple different things, but let's explore together this letter to the church of Sardis, the words of Jesus to one of his churches, and ultimately also for us. So we will start at the beginning and work our way from there. So Revelation chapter 3 is where we're at. If you have your Bibles, you can go with me there. If not, I'm sure it'll go up on the screen at some point. Verse 1, that's the beginning. "To the angel of the church in Sardis write, these are the words of him who holds the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know your deeds. You have a reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Wake up. Strengthen what remains and is about to die, for I have not found your deeds complete in the sight of my God. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard. Obey it and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what time I will come to you. Now, we've found, especially last week and throughout the weeks here in this series, that it's very effective to go back and look at the city, the church that this letter is intended for. It gives us a lens through which to look through and kind of grasp and better understand what Jesus is saying. So in just a second, let's do that same thing. Now, the city of Sardis is located in modern-day Turkey, and it was very, very well known during the Old Testament times long ago for its technology. It was a spinner of wool, very advanced in that. It was also one of the first places to mint coins, and so they were well known and proud of their technology. Their king at that time, his name was Croesus, and he was said to be the richest man in the world. It's a very rich city, and he was said to be so rich because the legend of King Midas was said to have left his gold in that area, and King Croesus found that gold in the streams surrounding his city and gathered it all up. And so because he did that, he was said to be the richest man in the world. And thus his city was known to be the richest city. And so the city was confident, was proud, was known for its wealth and its technology. The other thing that made the city so great is that it was located on a mountain, essentially. It was located about 1,500 feet above a valley floor on Mount Tmolus. And we have the slides there. You can see the top slide there. You see Mount Tmolus, and the city almost spanned the whole thing. There's a backside there. You can see on your right, left, I don't know, it gets confusing up here. On one of the sides, you can see there's a wall, and then down below you can see closer up some steep sides. There's no way you're getting up there, and you can see the remnants of a wall there. And so this city it's wealthy, it's technologically advanced, and it's well protected. It is essentially unconquerable between its wealth and its army, and the fact that there's one narrow path that gets to the gates, and everywhere else, as you can see, you can't see anymore, but trust me, it's there. These very steep sides. And so this city up on a hill of Sardis looked at itself and said, "We are unconquerable. We cannot be taken. We are impenetrable. Who would dare try and get in?" Well, in the 500s, King Cyrus tried to get in. We've read about King Cyrus in the Old Testament before, and he laid siege to this city that cannot be conquered. He surrounded it with his army. He waited to take it, and the King Croesus and his people inside kind of said, "No big deal. We're rich. We have lots of food. We're well taken care of. We can wait this out." And so these two armies faced one another. These two peoples faced one another. And for 14 days, King Cyrus surrounded the city with his army. And his soldiers, the Persian soldiers, sat there and watched and waited. And one day, one of the Persian soldiers was watching the city when he saw one of Croesus's guards, Croesus's soldiers, leaning up against a wall. And as he leaned back too far, and his helmet fell off. And this is what that helmet may have looked like. His helmet fell off, and it rolled down the hill, rolled down the wall, then down this steep hill or mountain or whatever you want to call it, to the bottom. And the Persian sits there and watches, and it's kind of like, oh, well, bummer for him. Make sure you headshot that guy. We can take him. But what happens is instead of just losing the helmet, he notices the soldier on the wall climbs down the wall, then disappears down the mountain, comes out, gets his helmet, disappears back in the mountain, comes up and climbs back up the wall. And he realizes there must be a secret path on one of these steep sides. There must be a secret path into the city that they think nobody knows about. And he just showed it to us. And so the Persian soldier goes to Cyrus and says, "Hey, look what I just saw." And Cyrus, being a wise king and leader, takes a group of guys, a group of trusted guys, his Navy SEAL guys, and he sends them up the path that night. They sneak into the the city of Sardis, open up the gates, and the city that could not be conquered is conquered. It falls. And now most people in history, they would say, well, it's an anomaly. It happened, it was because some, ridiculous thing where somebody climbed down a path, like it couldn't happen again. Well, in the 200 BCs, a couple hundred years later, another army is trying to take Sardis. Another army has come and surrounded it. And they observe the city up on a hill that cannot be broken, that cannot be captured, that cannot be compromised, that cannot be taken. And as they watch, they realize the people of Sardis, one of the easiest ways to dispose of trash, to dispose of dead animals, dead bodies, criminals, whatever, is to just throw it over the wall. And if you've ever seen a large pile of trash or dead animals, when you're driving down the road, you notice that they tend to attract birds. They tend to attract buzzards. And the army that was surrounding Sardis at this time noticed that the buzzards, they wouldn't land. They flew and circled the city because there were men guarding the walls in most of the areas. And so naturally, when a bird is right there, if you walk by, the bird's going to fly up and be afraid. But there was one spot on the walls where the birds just sat, and they didn't move. So they said to themselves, well, this must be a spot where there is nobody guarding this city that cannot be conquered. This must be a spot where there's nobody watching, nobody aware of what's happening over here. This may be the spot. So that night, a small group of men explored, went up the mountainside, found the path, climbed the wall of the city that could not be taken, the city that could not be compromised, the city that could not fall, opened the gates, and the city fell. The city that should not be taken, the city that could not be captured, that could not be compromised, twice was captured, twice was compromised, twice fell, primarily because it had become complacent, unaware, and apathetic. We don't need to guard over there. We don't need to worry about over there. We're fine as we are. Now, let's reflect back on that passage now that we've seen some of the history there. These are the words of him who holds the seven spirits of God and the seven stars. I know your deeds. You have a reputation for being alive, but you are dead. Wake up, strengthen what remains and is about to die, for I have not found your deeds complete in the sight of my God. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard. Obey it and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief. I will come over those walls. I will come in that unprotected spot, and you will not know at what time I will come to you. And I believe as we read through this, Jesus is using these specific words to conjure up and inspire imagery from this city's past to speak to the church's present. He's speaking to the church of this city as it is, and he's saying, remember how your city felt. Remember what your city was like. It's fallen twice because it was apathetic, and this is who you are. Wake up. Wake up, church located in the city that cannot fall, church that believes it's part of the city that cannot fall. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Now, I find it very interesting that oftentimes in Scripture, as we read through it, including today's passage, we see that the words and the ideas of death and asleep are interchangeable. It's very interesting to me. And it highlights something to think about. It highlights, first, the utter danger that comes with being complacent. The utter danger that comes with having fallen asleep, so to speak, and unaware of what's going on around you, because it leads to death. But it also, at the same time, it acknowledges that with Jesus, with a Savior, that death is nothing more than something that can be overcome as if we were waking up from being asleep. It is a fascinating picture of both danger and hope at the same time. But this idea of death is important because I want to make clear, take a moment to make clear as we read through this passage, that we understand what Jesus is speaking to, because this is an issue of deadness, not an issue of dryness. We all had those moments where maybe you've had coffee with a friend and, how are you doing? I'm going through a dry time in life. I'm struggling. It's dry. I'm not hearing from God. Oh man, it's one of those dry times. We've had those. And see, dryness is feeling disconnected from God, and it's feeling bothered by it. It's feeling anguished by it. It's feeling wounded by it. It's this deep desire to want to see that change. And all of us have those moments. Even the greatest heroes of the Christian faith, when you go back and read and reflect on their stories, have the moments of dryness where they just wonder where God is. Dryness is something we all have. It's okay. But this is speaking to deadness, which can happen if we stay in dryness too long. Deadness is feeling disconnected from God and not caring about it, not being worried about it, not letting it bother you, just saying, it's fine. I'll deal. There's other things going on. And Jesus is speaking here to a church, and through those words, speaking to us also, to people who may be falling asleep, and in falling asleep, experiencing deadness. A church that is well on its way to deadness, and maybe there's a word in there for some of us in here. I would ask you this: are there some things in your life that you have fallen asleep to? Things that maybe they're out there on the edges, just ever so barely tickling your conscience. And they're easily ignored when life starts to get going. Are there these little compromises that seem they're not a big deal, but they could actually be sneaking their way deeper and deeper into your life? Is there something that you're involved in that seems harmless at the moment, but in reality is going to be incredibly destructive if you let it play out? You see, the most dangerous compromises we make are usually not the most glaring ones. They're those small ones that snuck their way in and then started to grow. Those glaring ones came from the tiny ones that found a foothold. Are you asleep? Are you asleep to what's going on in your life? Have you started to let your attention to God and your connection to God wane because, you're tired? And, you're busy. You are. That's the way life is. And you know what? I'll connect with him tomorrow. I'll read tomorrow. I'll pray tomorrow. I'll do double tomorrow. But right now, I just want a break. Has your time for your spouse and your kids started to decrease just little by little, not dramatic, but just little by little, while your nights out with your friends, while your days on the golf course slowly start to happen a little bit more frequently? Have you let your feelings for another person go from, this person annoys me, I don't really want to be around them, we don't click, to this person is a waste of space and being, why are they alive? How did it get here like this? Are you awake? Has pride snuck in to where before it was just, I'm so thankful to be saved, and now it's, I'm really glad I'm not like them. That person is messed up. I got it all together. Is Jesus speaking to you and saying, wake up and see where those small little compromises are sneaking in? They're climbing up the hill. They're gonna find their way in. Wake up, wake up, wake up. I went to a wedding years ago where the wedding was wonderful, it was nice, and at the reception, I just through pure happen chance and good luck, I was seated at the absolute best table at a wedding reception. Do you all know what the best wedding reception table is? Take a guess. Go ahead, just guess. Did anybody say next to the cake? I didn't hear it, but somebody should have said it, because that is the absolute number one best table at any wedding reception. I will tell you why. Twofold. Number one, when they cut the cake, you'll be the first ones to get it. Besides the bride and the groom, but they don't really count anyway. So in terms of eating the cake, we all know they're going to get it. But you get the first cake. You get to see the cake before everyone else. And so, because wedding cake is really, really important, and so you can tell if it's going to be good or not. And if it's good, you just get out. You don't have to sit around and wait until they give you the slice, and then you're like, oh, this is such a disappointing wedding cake. I wish I hadn't stayed. And just leave. It's true. Next time you're at a wedding, watch, you'll do this. So I was sitting in the best spot next to the cake. The cake looked amazing. It was this multi-tiered cake, beautifully decorated, nice, thick white frosting. I could tell it was going to be delicious. And they clearly were going for presentation as well as substance. And the table it was on, it was sprinkled with rose petals. It was beautiful. It made you think of love. And so we're sitting there and eating, and I'm just looking forward to the cake. And this kid, this small kid who comes walking up to check out the cake, and so awesome. I love little kids. Looks at the cake, kind of walks around, checks, makes sure nobody's watching, takes his finger, takes just the smallest little fingerful of icing. And he did it on the back where nobody could see. Then he takes one of the petals off the table and just sticks it over where he had taken the icing. It's like, no one will know. So he does that, and you're like, oh, that was just one, it's cute. Yeah, everybody does that. And as if like some magical sonar had gone out to every child in Northwest Tucson, kids just came rappelling out of the ceiling even, down to this cake, and one after another would just walk up. And I'm the guy sitting there like, this is going to be good. Do you see what's there? Look what's happening right here. They're eating all the cake. This is awesome. And what started as this little tiny cute thing turned into the whole back side of the cake was covered in rose petals. And when the bride and groom got there, they're just kind of like, whoa. What happened? This is ruined. And it all started with this one little thing and escalated and grew until it just kind of exploded into something big. There's a reason why Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount says things like, you've heard it said, do not murder, but I say to you, don't even be angry with your brother, because that's what gets you there. Or you've heard it said, don't commit adultery, but I'm telling you, do not even look lustfully at another person, because that's actually how you get there. That's the path to that. Or Paul writes to the church in Galatia, in Galatians 5, he says this, he says, you all are dealing with a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of unrest and turmoil there, but know this, a little yeast works through the whole batch of dough. Just a little bit. That one small thing, when it sneaks its way in, can unhinge everything. And so Jesus is calling to his church, he's calling to us, and he's saying, watch out. Wake up to those little things that sneak in and start to slowly bring death. Now, the great thing about Jesus is that anytime you're dealing with Jesus, life doesn't end with death, but that he also gives this sleeping, this dying church. He gives sleeping and dying people hope, which is what we start to unpack and discover in this next set of verses. Let's continue, verse 4. Yet you have a few people in Sardis who have not soiled their clothes. They will walk with me dressed in white, for they are worthy. He who overcomes will, like them, be dressed in white. I will never blot out his name from the book of life, but will acknowledge his name before my Father and his angels. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Now, as we should know by now, let's go back and examine the city of Sardis and see maybe if there's some tie-in there, something we can learn. Sardis was the home to Cybele worship. Cybele, back in the Old Testament times, was also referred to in the Bible oftentimes as Asherah. Cybele was the mother goddess, the goddess of procreation, the goddess of harvest, the goddess, anything that had to do with productivity. That was Cybele. She was a big, big deal. When the Romans took charge, they merged Cybele with their goddess Artemis, who essentially was the goddess of a lot of the same stuff. And they said, we can just kind of mash these two together and that'll work for everyone. And Artemis was such a big deal that her main temple was in Ephesus, but outside of Ephesus, the most impressive temple dedicated to Artemis was found in Sardis, and there's the ruins of that there, the Artemis Cybele temple. You can see there towards the bottom just the tiny little specks of people walking around, and it gives you an idea of that is a giant temple. This is an important place. In Sardis, the worship of Cybele, the worship of Artemis, was a big deal, meant something. And now, the highest form of Cybele worship, if she is the goddess of procreation, the goddess of the harvest, the goddess of productivity, the highest form of Cybele worship would then be a celebration of the feminine. So for a man who worships Cybele, and there were quite a few of those, his highest form of celebration would be to allow himself to be transformed. He would become less masculine in order to become more feminine. Are you starting to get where I'm going? So what they would do is they would have a procession where all the worshipers, all these worshipers of Cybele, they would dress in their robes, and then they would march down the street, and all these men would work themselves up into a state of ecstasy, and then they would, in their robes, participate in what can best be described as a removal ceremony. Again, see where I'm going with this. To properly, if you were a man, worship Cybele, you would make yourself a eunuch. And I've heard that there would be these ceremonies where several thousand men would devote themselves to Cybele in this way. So you can imagine as you're marching down the street, worshiping in this fashion, that it would get messy. It would get bloody. Your robes that were once clean would start to get soiled and dirty. Keep that in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is that Sardis, once Rome came in, Sardis became a district capital for Rome. And in these district capitals, this is where they would keep all the royal records and the official records for that district. And these records had the name of every citizen in their books. And when a person died, they went through and they removed the name from the book. Or if the empire didn't like you, if you did something to offend the empire, if you broke the law in some way, if you were considered a bad individual in the eyes of the empire, your name would also be removed, even while you were alive, be removed from these records, from these books. They were essentially saying, you are dead to us. You do not exist. You do not get the comforts and the belonging of this community. You're cut off. Now, having looked at it through that lens, let's go back and just reflect on our passage. There are a few in Sardis who have not soiled their clothes. They haven't soiled their clothes. They will walk with me dressed in white, for they are worthy. He who overcomes will be like them, dressed in white, and I will never blot out his name from the book of life. You see, to be a Christian in Sardis, man, life was hard. Life was hard for a Christian in Sardis. You had the pressure from the empire to bend a knee, to bow down, to do what they wanted you to do. You had Cybele worship surrounding you, your neighbors, your friends saying, dude, why aren't you jumping on the bandwagon here? Why aren't you joining in? Everyone's doing this. You had 1,000 temptations and anxieties coming at you from all directions. Life is hard for a follower of Christ in Sardis. And isn't it hard today? And then imagine you get this message. This message that says, there are brothers and sisters who have stayed true, who have stayed strong. I know you're tempted. I know you want to jump in and it's tough, but believe me, there are people who have made it. They've had to deal with what you're dealing with, and they made it through. They have scars and wounds and brokenness, but at the end of the day, they made it. They've dealt with it. And so when I read this message to the church of Sardis, one of the things that I ultimately walk away with is that when we talk about waking up, to truly wake up, we need each other. We absolutely, undoubtedly, 100% need each other. Wake up. When I was growing up, I joined a swim team. I was part of a swim team. I was excited to join it. I liked to swim. I was born and raised in Tucson. I liked to swim, and so I thought, what better time to spend the summer than just to swim a whole bunch? That seems awesome. And so the problem happened when I found out what competitive swimmers are supposed to wear. See, I'm part of the generation where those big saggy pants and saggy shorts and baggy shorts like that, we brought that to you all. You're welcome. That was my people. I'm part of that generation. And now I'm the kid who buys his shorts a couple sizes too big because, that's what you're supposed to do. And you want me to wear what? You want me to take this tiny little piece of stretchy fabric and put it on and then actually do things in it? You want me to? No. By the way, I didn't bring any slides for this one. Mostly because I figured you all are very creative and have great, you can paint that picture yourself. I won't force that on you. Anyways. And so I showed up and I was like, no. And I would have quit on the spot. I showed up first day in these big baggy board shorts. I was like, this is going to happen like this. And if anybody wants to argue, it's just, they're not going to do it. And I show up and I look and I recognize all these guys from my neighborhood, these guys from my school, these guys that I look up to, these guys that are really good swimmers and go real fast, and guys that I want to be like. And here I am in my big board shorts, and they're in their swimming attire is what we'll call it for now. And they all just kind of look at me and they're like, you're new, aren't you? It's first day, isn't it? Yeah, we were like that. It's weird. We know. But it's cool. It actually helps you go faster. It's not a big deal. We're all wearing them. It's all right. Don't worry about it. It's cool. You can do it. And I stuck it out, and I enjoyed swimming, and I stayed on the team. And it was because somebody sat there and said, you can do it. Somebody, the people around me said, we've been there. It's tough. It's embarrassing. But it gets better. You can do it. How many of us in here have asked, am I the only one? Am I the only one suffering through this? Am I the only one carrying this burden? How many have said, nobody, if they knew what I was going through, nobody else on this planet could get through what I'm going through? If we're honest, most of us would admit to saying that. And the reality is that there are people who have gone through it, and they've made it. They've managed to get through it. Have you ever been barely making it, barely holding on? Because if you have, you're a lot like these people in Sardis. And imagine getting this letter, this word, this powerful, empowering, good, strong word that says, you have a God who says to each of you, your name has a place in my book. You do exist. You will have a place walking beside me, and you are not alone. You can make it. Imagine getting that letter because you've got it. You have a God who says you can make it because of me as your God and because of these people that I've put around you. You may not know them, but you can make it because of them. Paul writes to the church in Thessalonica, and he writes them along these same themes, the idea of don't be asleep, wake up, make sure you're awake, don't be caught being asleep. Don't be like those people. And then he goes on to give them an idea of here's what it means to be awake. Don't just be awake. Here's what it means to be awake. And he lays it out. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 11. Therefore, if you're going to be awake, therefore encourage one another and build each other up just as in fact you are doing. What I love as we've explored the Greek language is you start to understand that there's layers to it. And so this word, it means this, but then it has depth and means this, and then it has depth and means that. And the word that we're looking at there for encouragement is parakaleo, is the Greek word that they use there. And yes, when we think of encouragement, it means this idea of comfort. It means you can do it, buddy, good job. You're good. You're going to make it. But it means more than that. There's added depth and value to it as well, because it also, in addition to meaning that you're comforting another person, it means that you are literally calling somebody to your side. You're inviting them to your life. You're helping them learn the lessons that you've learned. You see that they're struggling with something that you've walked through, and you said, come walk with me. Let me walk with you, hold you up, carry you. Let me help you see how I made it through this. You're inviting them to your side. And then finally, you're inviting them to something more. You're calling them to your side, and then you're inviting them to something. You're inviting them to see, look, wake up, be encouraged, wake up to where something's sneaking in. And then instead of dwelling on that, look at to what you can become. We have a God who created us to be great and wonderful and marvelous and reflections of him. Look, you can be that. Something may have stuck in back there, but you can be that over there. Walk with me. Let's get there together. And wasn't it beautiful? Isn't this the way that Jesus worked? He would call people to follow him, come walk with me, and then he would push them to something more. This is what it means to encourage, to be awake. It's not only to be aware of what's sneaking in, but to be aware of those around you that need to be pulled with you. There are brothers and sisters in here today. It may even be you who are struggling, who are weighed down, who are burdened, and they are carrying heavy loads, and you've gone through it, and you know how to get through it, and they need you. You see, our waking up isn't just keeping out what's sneaking in, but it's also encouraging, keeping other people afloat, keeping other people from going from dryness to deadness, as is so easy to do. Wake up. Wake up. You may have noticed as you walk in today that we've set up a little bit differently. We have these tables set up all around the auditorium, and what I'd like to do to wake up, to practice, to be a part of it, is to celebrate communion together. And so in a moment here, the band will come back up, and we will spend some time in worship together to end our morning together. But as we do that, I want to invite you to participate in the Lord's Supper and communion as well. And there's something very interesting that I thought about this week with the Lord's Supper, is that many of us, we see the Lord's Supper in accurately as something that it's this gift, this special moment between us and God, as thankfulness for sending his son to deal with our junk, with our sin. And it's a moment to say, thank you, I remember, thank you. It's a moment to remember that on the cross, Jesus said, it is finished. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Put it all down. It is. It's a moment between you and God. But if it were simply a moment between you and God, why don't you just do it at home? It seems like maybe, in addition to being this vertical connection between you and God, it's also this horizontal moment between you and your church, where we rub shoulders, knock elbows together, and say, we all are broken and struggling through this together. Let's do this together. Let's celebrate the gift of God together. Let's carry each other together. So as you go up and you take the bread and you take the juice, you'll see that there's paper and marker, and that people have already, from the previous two services, started to write on these tables. And what I'd ask you to do is this, it may be uncomfortable, maybe awkward, but it will also be good, I promise you. I'd ask you to look at those and two things. One, if you are burdened today, if you're weighed down, if you are broken and you don't know how you're going to make it, write out what you're burdened with. Share with us. And then, at the same time, look at what's been written. Is there something on those tables as you take communion and celebrate the God who saved you? Is there something there that you have navigated and gone through? something that you've experienced where you could actively in that moment, maybe also throughout the week, be praying for that person to learn the lessons you learned, to have the same experience you had and to get through it? Wouldn't it be great to know that there's somebody out there who has been where you're at, who is saying, I'm praying for them to get to where I'm at? Wouldn't that be great? So let's be a community. Let's be a church. Let's be people who carry one another, who wake up to one another, who wake up to what's sneaking into our lives. So let's celebrate this beautiful God who makes this all possible. So let's pray in this moment, and then I will invite you to join us in worship and the Lord's Supper. Dear God, we thank you for the gift of your Son that we can celebrate each and every time we take the bread and the juice. And in that moment, let us simply be aware. Let us be awake to what's going on in our lives. If we are burdened, let us let it out. Be willing to let other people carry it with us. And if we see something where we can help, if we can pray for it, let us be those people. Keep us awake and aware of what's going on. Don't let us be asleep anymore. In your name.